one of my clients actually, she lost her home due to a lack of having the right financial resources and tools in place when her husband passed. I thought, I'm like, this should not have happened in the first place because the right things weren't set in place. So that was a huge wake-up call for me. That was what triggered my passion for what Grow and Arrow is today, which is a financial wellness company. We're not just focused on strategies or the money IQ side of things, but we're also focused in terms of making sure people, they heal their money wounds too, in terms of how can people have a healthy emotional relationship with their finances as well.
What's up, mindset hackers? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I've got an awesome episode brewing for you because I've got a special guest. As you know, on this podcast, I absolutely love talking about success, money, finance, money mindset, abundance mindset, limiting beliefs. And I found somebody who is absolutely crushing it on TikTok and LinkedIn. She is, her name is Kirsten. Granados, did I say that correctly? I just might have fudged that.
It's Kirsten, all good.
Kirsten, founder of Grow and Arrow. It's a financial consulting firm that specializes in helping individuals and entrepreneurs navigate the world of finance and taxes. Like I said, she's done extremely well on TikTok and LinkedIn, and we started engaging in each other's content probably about 6 months ago. And one thing that I found about Kirsten is she really thinks about money on a different level than most people. And we found a lot of commonalities when it comes to money mindset, limiting beliefs, abundance mindset, the things that I mentioned just a minute ago. And I have been so excited to have her on this podcast to talk with her and just kind of find out a little bit more about how she developed that, how she came into the career and profession that she does. It is so good to have you today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Simon. I appreciate you having me on. I am doing fantastic. I am excited to be here with you.
I absolutely love your videos. You are doing some very unique things. I know you're changing some lives. I want to know a little bit more about your company, your business, the people that you help. And I would love to hear how you got on this path and what led up to where you are right now.
Absolutely. So actually, my previous career was in real estate. So I was in that industry a little over 4 years ago. And at that point in time, so I had recently made a shift and I was working in the residential sector. My father has been a real estate broker for 25 plus years, and I was working mostly with high net worth investors. And then I shifted to working with more of like blue collar workers, working with more of like corporate warriors, of moms that have businesses and families that they had an idea of where they should be, but they didn't know where they needed to be. And there was just so much of a difference and a contrast between the mindset that I had encountered with between working with investors before. And so that got me really curious. And eventually, what I did was I kind of backtracked a little bit and I started to interview a lot of my previous clients in terms of a lot of the high net worth investors. Some of these were millionaires from China. And I interviewed over 70 of them. And I wanted to understand, like, why did they believe what they believe? What was the discrepancy between them and then someone else that they, even though they had been here for in the land of opportunity for so many years, like, why did they believe that? And just overall, there came a shift when one of my clients actually, she lost her home due to a lack of having the right financial resources and tools in place when her husband passed. And it was a very heartbreaking thing for me because I felt bad. I'm like, I do not feel comfortable. Even though I was glad to help her to sell the property, I thought, I'm like, this should not have happened in the first place because the right things weren't set in place. So that was a huge wake up call for me. And I was literally praying and praying. I said, I want to do something deeper than just positioning people into the property of their dreams. I said, I want to do something deeper than this. And fortunately, the answer came a few weeks later in the form of an acquaintance of my father. She previously had ran a brokerage in the real estate sector herself and had shifted to the financial industry. And then after that, she became a mentor to me. And then over time, combining with what I learned from her and then myself going through a very long personal growth and journey of just holistic healing and really shifting the mindset, that was what triggered my passion for what Grow and Arrow is today, which is a financial wellness company. We're not just focused on providing people in terms of the strategies or the money IQ side of things in terms of the actual tools needed to fund their goals, but we're also focused in terms of making sure people, they heal their money wounds too, in terms of how can people have a healthy emotional relationship with their finances as well.
That's absolutely fascinating. The first thing that I picked up on there is that you notice the difference between how people think, people who have a lot of wealth and abundance in their lives and people who might not. And I experienced that myself because I remember, growing up and just thinking I'm going to have a blue collar life. I'll probably be, find some type of job in manufacturing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just kind of, thought that was where my path was heading. And I ended up getting a job at the Salt Lake Country Club when I was probably 16 years old as a busboy there. And so I was working with very, very affluent people. And it was so interesting because over time, I started to realize that, wealth is something that anybody can learn about. And just like you described, there's just a different mindset around it, a different thought process and different feelings and emotions around money. And I love that you brought that up because it relates to me as well. And it's interesting because I've had some ups and downs. Right now I'm in a really good place, but I've had times where I built a business that was successful and then it's crashed down. A time where I almost went bankrupt. And I think that, I had a dissonance, my mindset from growing up, all those patterns and, being, in my head, a blue collar worker, and then trying to crack the code on that. I think I had ups and downs, but I think I also had a lot of limiting beliefs in my mind, or maybe self-image issues, or maybe worth issues that right now I'm starting to discover and realize that might have caused some turbulence. And, I might have destroyed my own business a couple of times because of some of those limiting beliefs that I had that I didn't even know I had, that were hidden deep in my subconscious. So I love that you talked about that. Now, you also mentioned that you have a company that helps heal some of those money wounds. Can you tell me more about that? Because I feel like if somebody has a traumatic event and there's money associated with it, or maybe, a time in their life where there was a shift financially, inside of your head, you can equate money to pain, and therefore, without you even knowing it, avoid it. Is that kind of what you're talking about as far as healing money wounds? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes. So fortunately, I've been able to have some clients that are psychologists and been able to have some deep conversations with them. And overall, it's been found that the majority of our financial habits, they're cemented by the age that we're 7, second grade. And a lot of the times, the way that we see money as an adult is a reflection of what we saw in our own environment growing up, the way that we saw our parents managing their own finances. So a lot of times when we think about if there's a negatively charged emotional relationship with money, it's probably linked to the behaviors and the habits that we saw, and then we mirror those. So a lot of the times what we reflect and just the shame, maybe even judgment, it is most likely tied to a memory, and we're just carrying and mirroring this this habit. that we saw our parents or those that were closest to us when we were very young, the emotions that they had, the conversations that they shared, their thoughts, their perspective, their feelings of either positivity or negativity. I see even a lot of times in terms of kids that they had parents where maybe there was a lot of discordance over money when they were little. They carry that to this day, and that therefore they carry a lot of limiting beliefs that are not even their own, but they simply adopted from their environment.
This is exactly why I wanted you to have you on here, because I never hear people talking about this. I love that you brought that up. I would love to know, can you give me some examples of like things that parents say? And I have some in my mind. Sometimes parents might say something like, the love of money. Well, most people say it as the money is the root of all evil, but and then people will say, well, actually it's the love of money. That either way, that's kind of like a negative sentence about money, right? Like it's a negative statement around money. And if you're a kid in that malleable state of your life and your parents say that, money is the root of all evil, that's programming you to think like that. But do you have other examples of what, parents or people that influence us say or do that create that, aversion to money?
Yes, I could say even micro nuances in terms of using the word just, like just work hard, just save enough money. When you are using conditioning words like that, that is something very dangerous that you're playing around with, because you're creating immediately an instance of limitation within that child's mind. So even micro nuances such as the word just. Another thing is money doesn't grow on trees. So anytime that there is a word that limits in terms of the possibilities or opportunities, there is a mentality of scarcity that is being implemented within that child's mind. And this is why there's so many adults that now they feel scared around finances, because they're living in a city called a scare city, where they feel that if they give away $500, that's $500 away of freedom, of opportunities, of safety that they won't have anymore. Those are a few things that I've seen.
I absolutely agree with that, because I've noticed that for me, giving has been a major facilitator of abundance. And when I started, I've always been okay with giving, but I always used to have that feeling of, oh, I shouldn't give too much, because then that takes that takes away from what I've earned or what I have or what's in my little chest. And I started hearing a lot of people that I follow that are very wealthy always talking about giving as being a part of wealth. And so I started to lean into that a little bit more. And as I lean into that more and more, I am blown away by how much abundance unlocks when you start giving, because I think that just the act of not holding on to it and not having that scarcity mindset, that fear of giving it away, it actually loosens things up. So you actually create more abundance in your life. Is that something that you feel the same about?
I do feel that. I feel that when you have that trust within yourself that the money will return, and you let go and you just practice releasing that. Maybe at the beginning, we're not talking about like on a philanthropist level in terms of like to a foundation, but just like small acts, small tokens of kindness throughout your day, throughout the week. And then you build up that habit. You are compounding appreciation, you're compounding like the energetic charge of gratitude. And I just feel it's like the principle. What you appreciate appreciates.
Yeah, I think I love that you're talking about the energetic charge, because when I give to somebody like on a face-to-face level, and if I can do something to make their life a little bit better. Someone told me a long time ago to just put some money in my car. And if I found somebody who was homeless, to just go up to them and give them some money. And just like, when I do this, I get this emotional feeling. I feel so connected. I don't know if I can describe other times where I'm that connected unless it has something to do with my family. But it's just like I get this feeling of like I am you and you are me, and I could easily be in your situation, and let me help you out. But for me, I can't say it's joy or happiness, but just connection, just like like feeling somebody, being there with some, like almost like combining myself with them for a moment and just being in their world and being willing to help them. But that to me is it is a very positive and a good feeling. And in my head, I think it makes me want to not work harder, but find the resources to have more abundance in my life and to be able to help more people. I love that. What do you do to help some of your clients out? Like if somebody's wired in a way where they've seen a lot of scarcity in their life, they've grown up and you can tell that that's holding them back. How do you coach them out of it? Do you just make them aware of it, or are there other ways that you help them? Is it just about awareness and learning, or is there a deeper way to unprogram somebody who's got some wiring around scarcity?
So it is a combination of two things. I would say if on a personal level, that person has not done just general hypnotherapy, that's something that helps for first and foremost, because once that person realizes they are enough and they don't feel that lack, then they're going to be able to understand a lot of their behavioral habits that occur in their finances. So that's one of the things that I recommend. If not, I do some deep subconscious works and some exercises. It starts off just to keep it a little bit more bite-sized and digestible for your audience, with even just journaling. Like, we want to understand, like, what's your first money memory? Like, what's the first time you remember thinking about your finances, thinking about how money was going to affect you? I find that journaling for my clients is something really helpful, because when you create that physical distance and now that is like on paper, you have the power to now later after that, you can burn it, you can destroy it, you can keep it to either look back at it, but you have now created a physical bridge, and it's no longer a part of you, like your thoughts, what you have. Now it is something that you've actually created a distance with that. So I think creating physical distance is the first thing. And then after that, it's going to be easier to create that mental and emotional distance. And it's really important for people, I think, to also reflect and have a time of meditation in terms of, like, how does that money memory dictate and affect their relationship with their finances now, currently. And it's pretty much just a flow of introspection. So we can kind of backtrack a little bit. And then after that, there's going to be most likely some subconscious energy work where we work on making sure that the person, they let go and they free themselves of a lot of those limiting money patterns and perspectives that they've attached to themselves, but are really someone else's.
That's incredible. Okay, let's talk about the system now, our financial system, and maybe some societal constructs that we've created around money. Well, give me some thoughts on that. Like, I know that sometimes in your content, you'll talk about things like that, and I'd love to hear from you. Like, what are some ways that, like, our system is set up that keeps people in scarcity mode, or maybe some of the, you know, on a societal level, some of our limiting beliefs around money and abundance and finance?
Sure, of course. So I would say that number one, the way that for example, a lot of systems, even within just like employer benefits, and the mentality that has been instilled has been that your income, your quality of life depends on your employer. And some people may say that I'm wrong or whatever. I think I dare to speak so boldly because I see so many people that they make very good incomes at their job. However, even then, they're not able to honor their own financial standards and be able to cherish their worth. And I say this because, for example, even with just a lot of 401ks, the way that they're set up, that particular plan, like, it has been sold for like a very long time that it is like the best thing since sliced bread for investing. I think, however, the problem with only relying on this is, like, number one, I like to understand things at a root and a history. I love reading, I love researching. And actually, even like, for example, like Vanguard's founder, John Bogle, he even admitted that the design of this plan was to be like a thrift plan, like an extra savings plan. It was not designed to be like the sole tool for people to invest and eventually retire or slow down later years. However, why do so many people only rely on this? And that it's literally just because of things they've heard from their coworkers, the things that are going around in the media and articles. It's conditioned to keep people, I would say, dependent rather than in a place of financial confidence where they have more decentralized investments. I'm not going to tap too deep into that, but people are more powerful than they think. So
Yeah, I love that you brought up John Bogle. I think he's such a disruptor, and I think that he's done a great service. I've heard you talk about, um, fees that compound, and they can be like hundreds of thousands of dollars without people even realizing. They look on paper, they look like, like even a fraction of a percentage, but then end up compounding. So I love that you brought him up. He's someone that I have a lot of admiration for, and I love that you talk about him sometimes in your content. But would you say, so this is something that I'm not aware of. I'm very proactive about learning about money. I think that one thing I hear people say is, this is probably the most basic limiting belief around money is, I don't know about money. And therefore people just kind of shrug it off and they look the other way. And it sounds like you really help individuals understand money on a greater level. Is that what you see a lot of, is people they have a job, they have an employer that provides a 401k, and do they just think, okay, I'm just going to sign up for this, and then they just don't give it, after they fill out the paperwork, they just bury their head? Is that what most people do?
I would say that's what a lot of people do. There's not enough awareness and clarity. Like the first thing is there has to be a clarity. You can't have confidence. It's just like driving a car. You need to have a proper GPS to understand where or what your destination is going to be. If you don't have your destination, I see a lot of people that just hop on the car of investing. They don't even know why they're doing it. They don't understand like what are the tax consequences. They don't have a destination in terms of a number, understand how much they need to retire or be able to not work, have a number in terms of, okay, how much money are they going to have after tax? Like there is just so much lack of clarity. And I think people, because there is a sense of like blind satisfaction or just comfort, that while it is comforting to be within that comfort zone for a lot of people, and I understand, at the same time, it limits them from having the responsibility and the clarity that could lead them to really understanding the actual nitty gritty of where it is that they stand.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that people, they don't want to know what's underneath the hood sometimes. And it's easier to just like set it and forget it. And there's a lot of financial advisors that just say that, just set it, forget it, automate everything. Which brings me to another point. The guy who always talks about automation also talks about something called the Latte Factor, of saving, like skimping on stuff like your Starbucks and putting that away because it will compound into, $1 million or whatever if you didn't go to Starbucks every day. Did you mention that in your content one time? Did you talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me more about
I
that. Like, I
did.
want to hear your views on that because I certainly have mine.
I do.
They've changed too, because I bought into that for a while, but now I'm like, okay, expand your means to have whatever you want. But remind me about what you talked about in that post where you're discussing the Latte Factor.
I love it. And this is even like a post I did like this week. I had someone tell me, and they're telling me, well, the reason people are broke or don't have resources because they don't save enough. They need to save.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, I am very, my beliefs and perspectives are very contrarian to those of Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman. And the thing is that I think restriction, it focuses on the wrong thing. I think you're directing energy to the wrong thing. Like in terms of like, even I just think in terms of even if you lowered your expenses to zero and you live in a cave in like New Mexico or something, I mean,
Yes. But you can
you
only
move
cut so
in,
much, right? You can only cut so much out of a budget.
right. I mean, even if you move into your parents' house and you have zero expenses and you're just like, I'm going to save and save. The reality is that activity, that mindset is really based on scarcity because you're focused on limitation. Why don't you focus that your income and your investing power is unlimited? That has no limit. So I would rather people focus on in terms of what is limitless than what has a cap because it's only so much you can save. So focus more on what you can invest, what you can have to generate passive income, what you can do to increase your income, to amplify your revenue streams. Can you include some digital products? Can maybe like you build a brand on TikTok or something? Like I tell people, like you can't think on just the 3,000 or 5,000 you would save annually. Why don't you focus on how you could actually generate 50 or 100 or 500,000? Like I think that's a much more, I would say, confidence based and refreshing perspective rather than instilling scarcity or fear into people. The last thing people need is more fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I feel the same. You can infinitely expand, but you can only contract so far. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's absolutely how I feel about it as well. But it's a shift too. I remember there was a time where like Latte Factor made sense for me. Okay, one more quick question around. You mentioned Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, and that you have kind of contrarian views against what they teach. Can you give me a couple of examples?
Right. And this goes back to like scarcity. Like I've had some of my clients, they maybe bought some of like Dave Ramsey's tools and they're like, well, Dave Ramsey told me that the only time I should be inside a restaurant is if I'm working at one. Or the fact that I shouldn't invest until I pay off all of my debt, um, like all of my debt, or I shouldn't use a credit card. And the reality is things have evolved. While I do agree a lot of his principles they have to help people that do not have discipline become um, more conscious about their debt, I also think that, for example, we live in an age where, to be honest, if it weren't for credit cards, I don't know how if I would have traveled to certain places because just the rewards, the points, the safety also, just having that protection, which a debit card does not provide against fraud and so many things. Like we have to, I think, continue evolving. And I mean, I just have the mindset that if we don't evolve, we're gonna dissolve. So
Yeah, and as you mentioned this, it just seems like that's, overgeneralizing, like credit cards are bad. That's just like a very dichotomous statement. And I love how you bring up, different elements of it. And I think we could all do better with just like really not just putting things or issues or people into buckets, but really like, looking at it from a practical standpoint, which you do. Okay, so I want to know a little bit more about like your evolution on social media. I think it's so fascinating because you just popped on the scene I don't know how long you've been using LinkedIn, but all of a sudden you started blowing up on LinkedIn and you're putting out these really cool videos. You have a ton of engagement on the content that you put out. And then I see that you're doing TikTok as well. I don't spend a lot of time on there, but I'm warming to this idea. I've got a presence on so many different platforms right now. It's hard for me to keep up, but I am working on leveraging, and building out my team to be able to do a little bit more. And so I've been a little bit more fascinated with TikTok, but I haven't really spent much time there. And I know you're very passionate about it, but first of all, tell me about like how social media impacts your business, because like I said in the intro, I don't see a lot of people that are financial or wealth advisors doing what you're doing. And it sounds like it's working for you, but walk us through that a little bit.
sure. So I'll start with LinkedIn, which is where we both met and we're most familiar with. So I would say that with LinkedIn, actually, due to the pandemic last year, a lot of in-person events that I used to go to network, build relationships, they were pretty much canceled. And I had no idea really how to build any sort of like content strategy or like what to do. So then later on that year, I purchased a like a video program from a LinkedIn coach. And then after I finished the program, I did it really slow. And I made like a few videos within that style, but I still felt like it didn't speak to my authenticity. And I was getting really stressed in terms of just having to keep up with all of this very structured framework behind the scenes and working with editors and making sure they understood what I wanted. So after that, I had a conversation with a few friends and another mentor, and she was like, at that time, she said, you know what, I'm posting TikToks on LinkedIn. And at that point in time, I was like, does that even work? I was like, I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, people, and in her case, I trusted that what she was doing, it sort of worked, at least for her LinkedIn audience, because this lady has a bigger audience than I do. And she was actually being like having like very fun. She wasn't actually like giving education. So I was like, well, what if I have all of my ideas and then I move it to a TikTok video? I make it into like a bite-sized chunk, almost like a cookie, something like that, just for people to experience and get a taste. And then at the same time, I realized in terms of actually community development, I'm like, there's no way that what I have to share is going to matter if I don't actually be proactive in terms of building relationships offline, in terms of building connections off of the comment section, in terms of working with people and supporting others and seeing how much I can support people offline and just be there. So I started to do the both things like simultaneously. And now, I mean, LinkedIn has been a wonderful blessing for me because I now have actually a Discord with my own community, just from friends that I've found in relationships I've built from LinkedIn. And I've actually realized, like, after a time, that I had a few friends that were entrepreneurs and business owners, and they were asking me, they were like, well, you know what, I want to also like leverage TikTok to grow my business and potentially just grow another audience and just cross populate, drive traffic to my Instagram, because Instagram is really more of like a nurturing platform to nurture. It's not really designed for growth, due to the fact that organic reach is not the same, like as in 2013 and 14. It's a very old platform by now. It's filled with more ads and things like that. And so therefore I started the one-on-one coaching, and after that developed the course program for business owners and showing them how to actually build revenue in a community on TikTok as well, especially for people of LinkedIn. So that was a really unexpected surprise. Like a year ago, I would not have expected to develop those things, and LinkedIn's just unlocked so many opportunities, friendships, amazing connections.
This is
It's
so
been a
good. Oh
blessing.
my God. So a couple of things here is, one, you just talked about like the mindset of like, how can I create a different stream of income? And then you prove it, because now you have your main business as a financial consultant. And then now you're making a new stream of income, teaching people from LinkedIn how to use TikTok, which is so awesome, because I'm kind of doing the same thing with coaches who use Facebook. So a lot of coaches are very prominent on Facebook, and a lot of people have no idea what is going on LinkedIn, that evolution. And like you said, that organic growth. And I think TikTok and LinkedIn both are in that growth phase where there is a lot of organic growth, and Instagram and Facebook are a little bit tapped out. I mean, like you said, it's a nurturing platform. I really don't spend too much time on those platforms, but a lot of people do. And so I bring people over to LinkedIn and teach them that. And you're kind of doing exactly what I'm doing, bringing people linked to LinkedIn, which is so fascinating for me, because it's like I'm starting to realize more and more that it's, that's something that I need to have a discussion with you about. But I want, like, while we've got you on the mic, tell me a little bit about this course.
Sure. So like one of the things that a lot of people they find that is really beneficial is in terms of just like lifetime of content. Like, for example, a good piece of content that is developed and designed properly, your lifetime could be a little over 90 days, which is something really beneficial. that the TikTok algorithm has, particularly that it remains on a feed, because usually on other places, like for example, LinkedIn and Instagram, your content usually maybe is about like 1 or 2 days, maybe at most, and then you have to like post again. It's something like that. The other thing that I would say is just that the way that one of the things that a lot of my clients have enjoyed is the fact that when you engineer a piece of content, you have the opportunity to reach an entirely new audience, not based on who you know or you're connected with. So I would say that literally like the way that the algorithm is structured, it is built to favor a small creator. Because if you don't know anybody or anything, that is amazing, because your content can gain exposure to an entirely new audience every single time. So that's something that is a really great thing for growth. And the other thing is that you can also use it to drive traffic to other platforms. Like I teach people how to drive traffic to Instagram, how to drive traffic to LinkedIn as well with TikTok, how to also amplify the streams that they have to monetize too. So a lot of people, if they're coaches, maybe they only have just one-on-one coaching and maybe a membership. So the goal is by the end of 90 days, okay, what can we implement as well? Maybe can you develop like an ebook? Maybe can you develop this downloadable? Maybe can you also drive traffic to this through Pinterest too? So using Pinterest to drive traffic to TikTok and Instagram too. So we want to create a system so overall there is a continuous flow of momentum. And it is not something dependent on the momentum you only have on that platform. So that's another thing that goes on and pretty much whirls around. It's a whole little mini ecosystem.
I love it. I love you used ecosystem, because that's how I describe some of the stuff that I teach as far as marketing and sales for coaches. I've kind of, I started off as kind of a mindset coach, which is something I absolutely love. And that's why I have this podcast, is it gives me a mic to talk about some of the fun stuff. But where I've really kind of found my niche is helping other coaches to become a little bit more prominent. And I do get people asking about TikTok. So I'm so glad that you're talking about this so that I can send you some leads really quick. What's the structure of your course? I think you mentioned that it's both a digital course with some lessons, but also some one-on-one coaching. Can you tell us the format, and
Yes,
how does
it's a
someone
hybrid.
find you if they want to like sign up for this?
Yeah, so they can send me a message on LinkedIn. That's where I am most of the time. Just under Kirsten Granados. I mean, to be honest, people forget websites anyway. So they could just send me a DM on LinkedIn. Or I'm also on Instagram at GrowNDArrow. So you can also send a message there too.
Perfect. Well, I am so excited. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. To the listeners, like, check that out. She is next level whether it's about social media and marketing or about money and mindset around money. So make sure you give her a follow and reach out to her if she can help you in either of those areas. I'm going to put her contact information in the show notes, so please check those out. If you know somebody who might be able to benefit from some of the services that she offers, please share this podcast with them. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I will see you on the next episode.